7 billion rupees.
Yeah, it's a massive number.
Right. I mean, that is how much money overseas Nepalese send home every single day.
Every single day.
It's a financial lifeline so massive, it's literally funding the country's largest budget in history. But here's the catch. What happens when the very country, relying on your paycheck, drafts a law designed to strip away your right to vote?
Yeah, it's a huge contradiction.
It really is. So welcome to the Nepali Diaspora Network podcast, your source for news, views, and insights for Nepalese worldwide. I'm excited for today's deep dive. Our mission is to really explore the latest Nepali Diaspora Digest newsletter. This is covering the week of May 23rd to the 29th, 2026.
And there is a lot to unpack this week.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to unpack this massive gap between the economic reliance on Nepalese living abroad and, the political machinery back home.
Right, because we are looking at a week defined by deep contradictions. The sources we're diving into highlight this record-breaking national budget kept afloat by remittance money, but it's set against a backdrop of, severe parliamentary gridlock and bureaucratic hurdles for the diaspora.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
It is. Though, as we will see later, the cultural and sporting arenas are telling a completely different, much more optimistic story about Nepal's global footprint.
Which we definitely need right now.
Okay.
But I want to start with the sheer scale of this money, because Finance Minister Swarnim Wagle just tabled a 2.12 trillion rupee budget for the 2026-2027 fiscal year.
2.12 trillion.
Right. That is a 25.2% jump from this year's revised figures. They are targeting a 7% growth rate. They want to keep inflation under 6%. And the newsletter notes a major relief point for everyday earners, too.
Yeah, the tax exemption.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A personal income tax exemption on annual income up to 1 million rupees.
Right. And raising that exemption threshold to 1 million rupees is, it's a pragmatic acknowledgement of domestic inflation.
For sure.
It puts more immediate spending power right into the hands of the middle class. But the real scrutiny falls on that 2.12 trillion rupee headline figure.
Specifically how they actually plan to spend it.
Exactly.
Well, one of the line items that immediately caught my eye was a proposal to build a sovereign AI computing center in Suchatar.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Right. I read that and wondered, what makes an AI center sovereign? And how does a country struggling with basic infrastructure pull something like that off?
Right. So sovereign in this context basically refers to data localization and state ownership.
Right.
Instead of relying on foreign corporate cloud servers, like AWS or Google to process government data, a sovereign AI center means the physical servers are located within Nepal's borders.
So they're governed by Nepal's laws.
Exactly. And the idea is to utilize the country's growing hydropower surplus to run these incredibly energy-intensive servers locally.
Oh, wow. Okay, that actually makes a lot of sense.
It does. It is a very forward-looking proposal. The skepticism, however, comes from looking at the government's track record of, actually building what it proposes.
Because proposing an AI center is very different from pouring the concrete and installing the actual server.
Precisely. If we examine the government's own economic survey, the projected current growth for this fiscal year is sitting at only 3.85%.
Ouch. And they want to hit 7% next year.
Right. Leaping from 3.85 to 7% in a single year requires a massive injection of active investment. Yet, when you dig into the budget breakdown, capital spending, which is, the money allocated for actual development, infrastructure, and projects like the AI Center, that makes up just 20.3% of the total budget.
Wait, really? Meaning nearly 80% of the budget is just going toward, keeping the lights on?
Essentially, yeah.
Like paying government salaries, servicing debt, that sort of thing.
That is the harsh reality of recurrent expenditure. But the structural problem goes even deeper than just the initial allocation. Nepal has a chronic history of failing to spend even that 20%.
Oh, right. Because of the bureaucracy.
Exactly. The procurement laws are notoriously complex. Contracts are often awarded late, contractors frequently underbid, and then just stall the projects, and the funds end up completely frozen.
So a massive budget on paper does not translate to economic momentum if the state apparatus can't efficiently deploy the capital.
Spot on.
Which brings us back to those overseas paychecks. If the internal economic engine is stalling out, the only thing keeping the macroeconomic indicators stable is you, the listener, the diaspora.
It really is.
Because the remittance figures from the first 9 months of the fiscal year are just staggering. 1.66 trillion rupees.
It's hard to even conceptualize that much money.
Right. That translates to about 11.55 billion US dollars, which is pushing gross foreign exchange reserves up by 30.5%.
And the underlying data reveals a really fascinating shift in how that money is actually being generated.
What do you mean?
Well, during that same 9-month period, the actual number of migrant workers leaving Nepal fell by 3.36%.
Wait, so we're seeing a decline in outmigration, but a near 40% spike in the money coming back.
Exactly.
I assume that means the demographics of who is leaving and, where they are going are fundamentally changing.
They are. The migration map is shifting away from traditional lower-wage labor markets in the Gulf.
Okay.
Nepalese are increasingly heading to Western destinations, Europe, Japan, Australia, the U.S., and they're often going as skilled workers or students who transition into higher-paying roles.
So the yield per worker is significantly higher.
Yes. But economists in our sources point out a dangerous domestic side effect to this.
Which is?
These higher earnings are largely being absorbed by household consumption.
Oh, instead of being invested into local businesses or factories.
Correct. Because inflation at home is so high, families rely on remittances just to purchase daily imported goods.
So let me get this straight. The dollars flow into Nepal, get converted to rupees to buy imported food or electronics, and those dollars immediately flow right back out of the country to pay foreign suppliers.
Yes. The wealth isn't compounding internally at all.
It is essentially just a holding pattern.
Exactly.
And if you are part of the diaspora funding that holding pattern, the political news this week is probably incredibly frustrating to read.
To say the least.
Because there is a draft, non-resident Nepali, or NRN Act, currently circulating.
Yeah.
And according to the Non-Resident Nepali Association, this draft explicitly bans NRNs from voting and standing for election.
It's a huge blow.
They estimate this could strip political rights from over 500,000 overseas Nepalese.
And the sources highlight severe pushback from diaspora groups over this. Many view this draft law as a direct violation of their rights, especially when you consider the legal precedent.
Right. Didn't the courts already rule on this?
They did. Back in March 2018, the Supreme Court of Nepal issued a clear order directing the government to enable overseas voting within 2 years.
And obviously that didn't happen.
No. 8 years have passed, and the mechanism remains completely unbuilt. And now, instead of implementing the court's order, this draft law attempts to formally codify their exclusion.
Wow. The diaspora groups quoted in the newsletter are pointing out the blinding irony here. I mean, the state is relying on their wealth to balance the national checkbook while actively drafting legislation to ensure they have zero voice in how that checkbook is managed.
It's completely wild.
It's like, okay, let's unpack this. It's like you're paying the entire mortgage on a house to keep it out of foreclosure, but the bank tells you that you are legally barred from holding the keys to the front door. Like, why should the diaspora accept those terms?
Well, it explains why diaspora leadership is demanding the draft be scrapped entirely rather than just amended line by line.
Right. They want a framework built on the principle of once a Nepali, always a Nepali.
Exactly. But the frustration extends far beyond just voting rights. The practical, everyday utility of the rights the diaspora supposedly already holds is completely failing under scrutiny.
Oh, you were referring to the new study released by the Institute for Integrated Development Studies, the IADs.
Yes, that
They did a deep dive into the diaspora in Australia, which now has over 213,000 Nepal-born residents.
It's a massive community.
It really is.
Yeah.
What did they uncover about the actual value of holding an NRN card?
Well, the ID study confirms with hard data what, many overseas Nepalese have argued for years. The NRN card is largely an illusion.
An illusion. That's a strong word.
It is, but it fits. The card promises specific benefits, investment access, property rights, inheritance rights, but the respondents described it as entirely symbolic.
Meaning?
The rights are heavily advertised, but functionally unenforceable.
Walk me through how that actually happens, though. If I have an NRN card that explicitly says I have property rights, why is it unenforceable when I actually go to a government office?
It comes down to a massive disconnect between the NRN policy and deeply entrenched bureaucratic operating procedure.
Okay, give me an example.
Sure. Say a diaspora member goes to the local land registry office, the mail pot, to claim an inheritance. The NRN card theoretically grants them this right. But the clerk at the Malpot is following a completely separate set of departmental regulations that strictly require a valid Nepali citizenship certificate to transfer land titles.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Right. Because the NRN had to surrender their citizenship when they naturalized abroad, they cannot produce the certificate.
So the departments just don't communicate.
They don't. The laws are not harmonized, and the NRN card essentially becomes a useless piece of plastic at the clerk's desk.
Man. So the grand promises from the central government just vanish the moment you hit local bureaucracy.
Pretty much.
No wonder there was a widely shared opinion piece in this week's Digest arguing for aggressive pragmatism. I mean, the author makes the case that Nepal needs to focus on delivering incremental, practical NRN reforms, like actually harmonizing those property laws instead of getting bogged down in chasing the grand, unfulfilled political slogan of dual citizenship.
And the International Labor Organization echoed a similar call for pragmatism this week, too.
What do they say?
They're pushing for comprehensive social protection that covers migrant workers across their entire life cycle, from pre-departure all the way to their eventual return.
Which makes a lot of sense.
Mm.
But pragmatism requires a functioning legislative body.
That is the problem.
Right. And if we want to understand why these NRN reforms and voting mechanisms are completely stalled, we have to look at the severe paralysis gripping the domestic parliament.
The gridlock is total right now.
It's crazy. Parliament spent the entire week completely frozen. The major opposition parties, the Nepali Congress, the UML, the NCP, and the RPP, they've all united to disrupt the House of Representatives.
Yeah, they're refusing to allow any proceedings to move forward until the government enforces a mandatory Prime Minister's question hour.
Which, just for context, a Prime Minister's question hour is a standard mechanism in many parliamentary democracies, right? Designed to force the head of government to answer unscripted questions on the record.
Exactly, and the opposition is framing this disruption as a principled stand for executive accountability.
But the timing is what makes this so critical. To stall the entire legislative body right when a record-breaking national budget needs to be debated, what is the actual political leverage they were trying to gain here?
Well, it is a high-stakes game of political chicken.
Oh.
By paralyzing the House before the budget vote, the opposition is essentially testing the unity and strength of the ruling coalition. If the Prime Minister concedes to the question hour under duress, he projects weakness.
Right.
But if he refuses, the opposition can blame the government for stalling crucial national business. Meanwhile, vital legislation like the voter roll bill and the film bill are just collateral damage. They are completely stuck in the chamber.
And it is not just coalition versus opposition either. I mean, the main opposition party, the Nepali Congress, is dealing with massive internal factional warfare ahead of their 15th national convention.
Yeah, it's getting messy.
Very. Senior leader Shekhar Koirala recently floated a 5-point plan to merge 2 central working committees. He claims it will settle long-running disputes over party membership.
But General Secretary Gagan Thapa is fiercely opposing that plan, arguing it blatantly violates the party statute.
So why is a committee merger causing such a huge internal crisis?
Because merging those committees would create a massive 400-member body.
Oh, wow.
Right. And in the context of an upcoming national convention, a 400-member central committee drastically dilutes the voting power of individual delegates.
So it allows faction leaders to pack the leadership structure with their loyalists.
Precisely. Thapa's argument is that using the rulebook as a weapon to secure factional loyalty just undermines internal party democracy.
It really shows how intense the battle for institutional control actually is. And, the temperature of that political culture was on full display in the Kochi Provincial Assembly this week.
Oh, that was quite a scene.
It was. Former Chief Minister Rajendra Rai became so enraged during a session that he literally physically tried to rip a microphone off the rostrum to throw it.
It is a very stark visual representation of the current political discourse.
Which brings up a really interesting point raised by a CSIS analysis featured in the Digest.
What did they say?
Well, the analysis frames the recent March elections as a generational break, suggesting a new strategic era driven by younger voter demographics. But if you are part of the diaspora, watching politicians fight over committee packing, stall the national budget, or literally throw microphones, you have to wonder, is this generational break actually changing the mechanics of governance, or is it just the exact same script being read by a slightly younger cast?
That's the perfect way to phrase it, because a shift in voter demographics does not immediately dismantle the deeply entrenched institutional habits of the political class.
Right, but the culture takes longer to change.
The behavioral shift lags far behind the generational one. However, it is really crucial to note that while the political sphere is locked in these disputes, the physical development of the country is not entirely frozen. Engineers are still pouring concrete.
Okay, let's shift gears to some good news then.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that infrastructure progress, because there are some major bright spots in the energy sector.
There really are.
For instance, the Upper Trishuli 1 project, which is a 216-megawatt facility, hit a major weir operation milestone this week, and the Korean ambassador even attended the ceremony.
Yeah, and for context, a weir is essentially a low dam structure built across a river.
Okay.
It doesn't completely stop the water, it just alters the flow characteristics to regulate the water level and direct it into the intake for the turbines.
Oh, I see.
So completing the weir operation means this long-delayed run-of-river project is finally taking physical shape, and they're targeting a mid-2027 completion.
That's great. But the energy minister also made headlines by explicitly stating that reservoir-based projects are now the national priority over these run-of-river projects. Why the sudden shift in strategy?
It's basically an energy security calculation. Run-of-river projects rely entirely on the natural flow of the water.
Right.
So during Nepal's dry season, when river levels plummet, the electrical output of these plants drops drastically, forcing the country to import power.
Gotcha.
Reservoir projects, on the other hand, build massive artificial lakes to store water. You can release that stored water through the turbines during the dry season, ensuring a consistent year-round energy supply.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. And they are making headway on those too. The 140-megawatt Tanahu Reservoir project just crossed the 63% completion mark.
It's good to see that physical infrastructure steadily advancing.
It really is. But beyond the physical landscape, I want to talk about Nepal's cultural and emotional exports this week because the stories are just incredible.
The Kavier Women's Volleyball Championship hosted in Kathmandu was undoubtedly the highlight.
Oh, the narrative arc of that tournament was fantastic.
That was like a movie.
Right. The Nepalese women's national side opened the championship with a really tough, narrow loss to the defending champions, India.
Yeah, that was heartbreaking.
But instead of letting that break their momentum, they completely rallied. They defeated Kyrgyzstan, they beat the Maldives, and they secured a spot in the semifinals against an undefeated Iranian team.
And, you know, the social impact of that run cannot be overstated. Playing in front of a massive, roaring home crowd in Kathmandu provides this unprecedented level of visibility.
Oh, for sure.
When a young girl in Dharan or Dangari watches the national women's team compete at that level on home soil, it fundamentally alters her perception of what is possible.
I love that. It is exactly the kind of representation that transcends the final score. And that cultural footprint is expanding far beyond Kathmandu, too.
Yeah, there's a lot happening.
The 23rd Kathmandu International Mountain Film Festival, or KIMF, just opened in Thamel. They are screening 50 films from 29 different countries, proving that Nepal doesn't just export labor, it is a global hub for storytelling.
That global reach is really evident across multiple disciplines this week.
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, the legendary folk rock band Nepal is currently in Malaysia playing their first ever concert at ZEP Kuala Lumpur. You just know that diaspora crowd is singing every single lyric back to them.
Absolutely.
Over in India, the classical Sarod maestro Sudarshan Rajapadai was honored with the prestigious Kalakshetram title in Pundi. In the sporting world, the Cricket Association dispatched its A squad, captained by Anil Kumar Saha, to compete in the All India Gold Cup in Uttarakhand.
And we also saw a deeply significant milestone on Mount Everest.
Oh, yes, Nilam Poodle.
Exactly. Nilam Poodle, a makeup artist, became the first openly LGBTQ plus Nepalese person to successfully summit the world's highest peak.
It is a beautiful, quiet moment of history being made. And when you look at all of these elements together, you know, the sports victories, the cultural festivals, the individual milestones, it really highlights the dual reality of the global Nepalese diaspora.
It really does.
Because if you are listening to this from Sydney or London or New York, you are unequivocally the economic backbone of the nation. Your remittances fund the national budget. You are the country's greatest cultural ambassador.
Right.
Yet, simultaneously, you are navigating a bureaucratic maze just to claim your inheritance, and you're fighting a draft law just to retain your basic political voice back home.
It requires an immense amount of resilience to occupy that space.
It does. And speaking of navigating life abroad, we want to share a practical resource for the community. If you are a member of the Nepalese diaspora settling in the UK, or you know someone who is, Balea.uk is a platform you should definitely know about.
It's a great tool.
It really is. It operates as a digital notice board tailored specifically for the community. Whether you are searching for local jobs, navigating the housing market, looking for community events, or wanting to support Nepalese-owned businesses, it's an incredibly helpful community-focused tool. That is balea.uk. Highly recommend bookmarking it.
Community-built tools like that are just essential for turning a new country into a home.
Exactly. And if you want to dive deeper into the complexities of the NRN Act, the budget breakdown, or any of the stories we explored today, head over to nepalidiaspora.net. You can read the full Nepali Diaspora Digest newsletter and access a wealth of resources designed to keep you connected and informed.
As we close today's conversation, I want to leave you with a thought regarding that shifting migration map we discussed earlier.
Okay, lay it on us.
Well, we are watching the diaspora move increasingly toward Western nations, right?
Yeah.
They are securing highly skilled jobs, earning more, and putting down deeper roots in those new societies. Yet, as the ID study showed, Kathmandu continues to offer them symbolic cards and disenfranchising legislation.
They are keeping the country afloat, but being denied the keys.
Exactly. Which raises a profound long-term question: what happens in 20 years when the next generation, the children of today's migrants, born and raised in these new countries, looks at a system that actively denies them enforceable rights and a political voice? Will they feel any obligation whatsoever to keep sending that 7 billion rupees a day back to Nepal?
Wow, that is the multi-trillion rupee question hanging over the entire economy. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep making waves, keep demanding your voice, and we will catch you next time.